Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Sub-Lieutenant Bethany Nyan. This evening, we commemorate the 82nd anniversary of the loss of the Australian light cruiser HMAS Perth 1 and more than 350 members of her crew in the Battle of Sunda Strait on this date in 1942. The bell that you just heard struck was recovered in 1975 from the wreckage of HMAS Perth 1. On the 28th of February, HMAS Perth and the heavy cruiser USS Houston were making for the southern coast of Java. Late that evening, they encountered the Japanese Western Invasion Convoy at the northern entrance of the Sunda Strait. The convoy was escorted by a large Japanese flotilla of 2 light cruisers, 8 destroyers and a mine layer, supported by another 4 cruisers, an aircraft carrier and further destroyers. Heavily outnumbered, the Australian and American crews were soon running low on ammunition and changing course constantly to avoid attacks from every direction. They fought desperately against impossible odds. Together, Perth and Houston succeeded in sinking a Japanese transport and a mine layer, and they severely damaged a further 3 transports. But under the weight of Japanese numbers and superior firepower, the end was inevitable. Japanese ships launched 85 torpedoes during the brief engagement. Perth suffered her first hit from a Japanese shell at 11:26 p.m. Soon after midnight, the first torpedo struck. With her crew reduced to firing practice shells and illumination star shells, a second torpedo hit Perth shortly afterwards, and her captain ordered, "Abandon ship." Perth was hit by 2 more torpedoes before finally sinking at 25 minutes after midnight on the 1st of March 1942. The action was all over in just under an hour from the time the first round hit. Houston, meanwhile, continued to fight. Although ablaze from enemy fire, she was rent by shell and torpedo explosions and sank just 20 minutes later. The captains of both vessels perished with their ships. Of the complement of 686 men in HMAS Perth, over 350 officers and ratings perished in this, her last action. Of the 320 survivors captured by the Japanese, 1/3 died during their long ordeal as prisoners of war. Of the more than 1,000 American officers and men in USS Houston, less than 400 escaped the sinking of their ship. Only 266 of them survived the harsh regime of brutality and starvation in Japanese prisoners of war camps. Australian sailors would undoubtedly wish us to also remember their brave American comrades today. This evening, we remember the sailors of both vessels, as well as those of all Allied warships, Australian, British, American, Dutch sailors who were lost in the series of engagements in the Java Sea while attempting to repel large Japanese invasion forces. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening, we're honoured to welcome Rear Admiral Stephen Hughes, representing the Chief of Navy, Ms Annalise Young, Australian Consul General, Noumea, and Ms Alison Shea, Australian Consul General, Papeete, and the accompanying international delegation. Captain Kevin Corderer, US Naval Attaché, Mrs Jan Chataway, widow of able seaman Frank Chataway, HMAS Perth 1 survivor and subsequent prisoner of war. Vice Admiral Russ Shoulders, retired, former Chief of Navy from 2005 to 2008. Mr Peter Everly, President of the ACT Area HMAS Perth Association. Mr Alex McGowan, representing the Naval Association of Australia, and all association members who have joined us to commemorate the 82nd anniversary of the loss of HMAS Perth 1. We also warmly welcome the United States Air Force Air War College delegation and the Royal Australian Naval College HMAS Creswell New Entry Officer delegation in attendance this evening. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students representing Canberra Girls Grammar School from Deakin ACT and the Emmanuel Lutheran College from Buderim, Queensland. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. Ladies and gentlemen, if able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, present, out!
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and
Ladies and gentlemen, students, if able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to leading seaman Allan Ross Lloyd Hawke. Allan Hawke was born on the 24th of December 1919 at Mount Barker, South Australia, the only son of Clifford and Christina Hawke. Young Allan attended Jamestown High School and Prince Alfred College and went on to work for the Adelaide Steamship Company, during which time he joined the Royal Australian Navy Reserve. Hawke was mobilised for duty on the 8th of September 1939 and began full-time service. After a period of training at HMAS Cerberus and HMAS Penguin, and a brief period aboard the armed merchant cruiser HMAS Australia in September 1941, Hawke was transferred to HMAS Perth. One of 3 modified Leander-class light cruisers used by the Royal Australian Navy during the early part of the Second World War, Perth had returned to Australia after supporting the Allied reinforcement of Greece and participating in the invasion of Vichy, Syria, and Lebanon. Perth arrived in Sydney on the 12th of August, but her crew had to wait for Prime Minister Robert Menzies to deliver a speech before they were released for shore leave, which was not well received. As Perth remained in home waters for repairs and weaponry upgrades, Hawke was rated acting leading seaman on the 1st of October. From late November, Perth carried out patrols, escort duties, exercises and manoeuvres, visiting Auckland, New Caledonia, and New Guinea. At the end of January 1942, Perth escorted a convoy of oil tankers and cargo vessels on a mission to claim oil from the Dutch East Indies before the anticipated Japanese invasion. With the fall of Singapore on the 15th of February, Perth sailed for Java, arriving on the 24th and coming under attack from Japanese aircraft. On the night of the 27th of February, 14 American, British, Dutch, and Australian ships engaged Japanese naval forces in the disastrous Battle of the Java Sea. Having made their escape, Perth and USS Houston received orders to sail through the Sunda Strait to Tillajap. The 2 cruisers followed close to the Java coast, with Perth leading. Intelligence had been received about an enemy force northeast of Batavia, but Captain Waller stated his opinion that the Japanese would make a landing east of Batavia, and they would not likely to interfere with the Allied ships' passage through the Sunda Strait. On the evening of the 28th of February, at the northern entrance to the Sunda Strait, Perth and Houston met the Japanese Western Invasion convoy, escorted by a large Japanese flotilla of 2 light cruisers, 8 destroyers, and a mine layer, supported by another 4 cruisers, an aircraft carrier, and further destroyers. Heavily outnumbered, soon running low on ammunition and changing course constantly to avoid attacks from every direction, the Australian and American crews fought against impossible odds. Together, Perth and Houston sank a Japanese transport and minesweeper, then severely damaged a further 3 transports. But under the immense weight of Japanese numbers and superior firepower, the end was inevitable. Japanese ships launched 85 torpedoes during the brief engagement. Perth suffered her first hit from a Japanese shell at 11:26 p.m. At midnight, with ammunition running low, Perth's Captain Heck Waller ordered his ship to try to force a way through. Soon after midnight, the first torpedo struck. With her crew reduced to firing practice shells and illumination star shells, a second torpedo hit Perth shortly afterwards, and Captain Waller gave the order to abandon ship. Perth was hit by 2 more torpedoes before sinking at 25 minutes after midnight on the 1st of March. Ablaze from enemy fire, Houston continued to fight on until rent by shell and torpedo explosions, sinking 20 minutes later. The captains of both vessels went down with their ships. Of the 686 men on board HMAS Perth, more than half, over 350 officers and ratings, perished. Leading Seaman Hawke was one of 320 survivors captured by the Japanese. He was also among the 1/3 of those survivors who would die as a prisoner of war. In 1944, Allan Hawke's parents received a letter from him, and they were encouraged in the hope that he would return to them. In 1945, Hawke joined Fukuoka 22B prisoner of war camp in Japan. Here, he laboured in a coal mine run by a Sumitomo Coal Mining Company. None of the American prisoners were able to work in the coal mines. This work was done by Australian prisoners. While their treatment was good, the prisoners suffered from lack of heat and inadequate food, which made the work hard. The mines operated on 2 12-hour shifts. Each prisoner was required to mine enough coal to fill a given number of cars each day. There was no elevator in the mines. Leading seaman Allan Hawke died of illness there on the 18th of January 1945. He was 25 years old. Today, his remains lie buried in Yokohama War Cemetery alongside more than 1,500 Commonwealth servicemen who died in Japan. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed by the pool of reflection. This is one but many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember leading seaman Allan Ross Lloyd Hawke, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea, no flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present, oh! Catapult party, shoulder up!
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party, outward, turn! Catapult party, quick, march!
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.